Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. What is a four-letter word with a small laugh in the middle? Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Imperium Horizons from Osprey Games. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. In Imperium Horizons from Osprey Games, 1 to 4 players will take on the roles of various civilizations as they attempt to build the greatest empire of them all through a deck building program and manipulating the cards in front of you. Now, this is one of a series. There have been other Imperium games before this. I'm not going to get too much into the nuts and bolts of how it's played. I'm just going to give you the bare basic overview and tell you what I think. Now, you're going to have various organizing tiles, and these are places where you can actually put your cards around them. There's going to be a lot of different cards and card slots for you here. Of course, you're going to have your draw deck and your discard area, but you're also going to have kind of a development deck. You're going to have a state place for your state card. You're going to have an Ascension card with a Nation deck upon it. Once you get to the Nation deck, you kind of level up there. You also have Nation cards, but you have all these different cards you're going to be working with in this game, and they're going to be arranged in certain orders. For instance, the Nation deck is placed kind of horizontally above the Ascension card. You're also going to collect a number of tokens at the beginning of the game. These are population tokens, material tokens, and progress tokens. And there may be trade goods depending on what mode you're playing. Now, you're also going to have kind of a common area with a market deck. You're going to place cards with the associated symbols, their decks above the market. Then you're going to go ahead and draw one card, put it beneath it. You're also going to have the Fame deck with kind of a horizontal Fame card beneath it, but you're going to go ahead and place that deck down on top of it. You're going to play through that. That's going to be one of the end of game conditions. You're also going to have a Solstice token, and each player will also take action tokens and exhausted tokens as well. Now, during your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You can activate, you can innovate, or you can revolt. Now, if you choose to activate, you can take 3 actions and exhaust up to 5 exhaust abilities that you already have. And essentially what you're doing is you're playing cards in front of you. You're creating kind of a tableau in front of you. And some of these cards will have kind of an infinity token thing, which means you just kind of leave it there. It's an ongoing thing. You can continue to use those abilities every turn, but there's going to be other cards you'll play that will grant you special abilities as well. Now, for instance, you may have some unrest cards in your hand. Unrest cards kind of gum up your works. They don't really do much for you. You can kind of pay some tokens and whatnot to get rid of them. Or one of the things you can do is you can actually garrison them. Some cards allow you to garrison them. You can place the unrest cards under those cards, and that kind of takes them out of your hand and they won't cycle through. But essentially, you go around, you're reading the text on the cards, and you're fulfilling those specific conditions. Sometimes you may have to pay resources, sometimes you may gain resources, but you're attempting to go through and play all those cards, take those actions for those special abilities. Now, as you're purchasing cards from the market, essentially, if there are any unrest cards underneath it, you're going to go ahead and have to take that unrest card too. That will go into your hand, into your discard pile, along with that newly acquired card. Now, you can choose to innovate. If you choose to innovate, you can go ahead and simply discard all the cards in your hand, and you can acquire a card from the market. But this is called a breakthrough, meaning you can go ahead, you can take that card, and if there is an associated unrest card with it, you simply put the unrest card back in the unrest pile. You don't have to take it with you. Now, you can also do the revolt action. If you draw a hand that has a lot of unrest cards, or even one, however many you want to do, you can choose not to do anything else and simply discard all of those unrest cards. You can put them away, but then your turn is over. Next, you have the cleanup phase. Now, the first thing you do is you take a progress token and you place it on any one card in the market. Now, these progress tokens will accumulate so that once players grab those cards, acquire those cards, they will also gain those progress tokens. Next, you remove all of the action and exhausted tokens you have in play. You return them to your stake card, and then you go ahead and you can discard any number of cards from your hand, and then you draw your hand back up to your hand size. So players are going back and forth. They're playing cards. They are activating special abilities. They are collecting resources. They are spending resources. They're going ahead and acquiring cards from the marketplace. In some cases, they're going to innovate and break through to acquire some of those cards as well. They are getting rid of the unrest cards. They are trying to get those out of their hand, and then they are cleaning up and doing it again. They are hoping to gain the most points from the card abilities they played and also from collecting the progress tokens. Now, essentially, there are 4 ways the game ends and you go to scoring. First of all, if the main deck ever runs out, you go to scoring. If one player's development area is empty, you go to scoring. If the King of Kings card is revealed, then you go to scoring. And if any specific card triggers the end of the game, then that too will end the game and you will go to scoring. Now, the various cards you have in play will detail how they score, and there's all sorts of different ways in which they score. You're going to go ahead and check those out. You will be able to bank cards, put them in kind of an archive under your stake card, I believe. If you do that, you can go ahead and add up any points that are there if they are relevant. And any resource tokens you have will also count for 1 point. Whoever has the most points wins. Imperium Horizons. So, as I say, Imperium Horizons is a game that is part of a series of games. I think Imperium Legendary, Imperium Legends, Imperium Classics, I believe. I'd seen these games for years. You go to Barnes and Noble and I'd see them and they looked really interesting, but I'd never got a chance to play them. I'd had people recommend this series of games to me in the past, but as I say, I'd never had a chance to actually go and play it. So I was excited when they announced this new edition when Osprey announced this new edition, and I reached out to them and they sent me a copy of this to review. So I was super excited to finally kind of dip my toes into this system because, as I say, it really looked like a lot of fun. So I went ahead, I got the game, and Ray came over. Ray actually, he read up on it, and then we went ahead. We decided to go right at it and play the game. And I was really, like I said, I was really excited to finally play it. And the first thing that struck me is this is not just like any other old deck builder, right? It's very different. The way you have the cards and the way they're oriented and the way you cycle through them. It's a very different kind of system. And it does it very well. Like, for instance, you've got these unrest cards that kind of gum up the works. They're like the weakness cards in DC, the wound cards in Legendary. But I really like that. And thematically, it works really well. And how you can garrison them and then you can, obviously just get rid of them when you don't do anything else. I think that stuff works really well. But what I really think is cool about this game is the cards, how they score differently and they work, and each faction is a little bit different. And you've got a ton of different factions here, including Martians, right? So you got a ton of different factions, and each faction plays very differently, right? They've got their own little nuances and subtleties. And what's cool too is, like I say, discovering those abilities and those strategies to play the different games. So I'll say this right now. There is like a ton of replayability in this box. There's a ton of factions that come with it. And honestly, I think it's going to take you several games to really learn effectively how to play one strategy, one faction there. So I really like that. I really like all the surprises you get in learning that as well. But this is just good. It's an interesting. It's kind of, like I say, a hybrid between a traditional deck builder and a tableau builder, and with all the things you can do and all the powers that you can do, the game really becomes a game of discovery and a game of there's just this delight you take in learning each faction and its nuances. So I've really enjoyed playing this game. I look forward to really in the future discovering more about it and playing it more and learning more about it, because there's just so much meat here. I really enjoy it. There's a lot more going on. I didn't touch. There's a lot of stuff in the rules I didn't even touch in my overview. You can see a learn to play video for that. But I really like this game. I think it's frankly fantastic. Looking forward to, as I say, really diving into this one in the future. But my recommendation for Imperium Horizons is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we take a look at military history, books on history, fun things like that. I even post some of my own lectures on that channel. It would mean a lot to me if you would check that channel out and subscribe. And also, please like this video on Board Game Geek. And also, too, ladies and gentlemen, if you really enjoy the content we bring to you here, I'd humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. How long do you think it takes to repair a hearing aid? I dropped mine off 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a thing. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where